Hi everyone, I'm Wendy, and today I have a brand new Aldi meal prep video for you. Every day we hear about the price of groceries going up, but the great thing about a whole food plant-based diet is that all of my main staples are still relatively cheap and can be found at most all grocery stores. So today I'm showing you an entire meal prep from start to finish, making enough food to last me about 5 days, and it only cost $50. All of the written recipes will be linked in the details below the video. Let's start by taking a look at my grocery haul. I bought a combination of both conventional as well as organic food, and even with splurging on some organic items, my total for everything was only $50.84. I got a couple cartons of fresh spinach, parsley, bell peppers, bananas, clementines, lemons, cucumbers, garlic, tomatoes, mushrooms, sweet potatoes, onions, frozen riced cauliflower, frozen broccoli, tofu, dried lentils, canned chickpeas and great northern beans, salsa, and quinoa. And now that I've got all my groceries, it's time to meal prep. Today I'll be showing you how to make baked sweet potatoes, quinoa flatbread, taco lentils, tofu scramble, hummus, and cheesy sauce. First, I like to start by taking a few moments to get myself set up. I've written down a little plan ahead of time of everything I want to make, and I get out all the equipment and ingredients that I'll need for my recipes. Taking this few extra minutes before I start makes a huge difference in how smoothly the food prep will go. So here I have what I need for my cheesy sauce. I've got my food processor and ingredients for hummus. Then I have my Instant Pot to make taco lentils, and veggies to wash for making tofu scramble. But first, I'm going to start by washing these sweet potatoes and getting them in the oven to bake. When doing a big food prep like this, you want to start with the things that take the longest to cook. So I'm washing these sweet potatoes, and then I just trim the ends off to let steam escape in the oven. Then I lay them out on a parchment-lined baking sheet, and I like to bake them at 375 degrees Fahrenheit until they're done. This usually takes at least an hour, but I like to check them around 40 minutes. Next, I want to get some quinoa soaking. I'm also going to be making quinoa flatbread, which I'm not making until later, but I want to soak the quinoa first. Normally, I like to soak the quinoa overnight for this recipe, but today I just warmed up some water and I'll soak it in the hot water for about an hour while I prep my other food. Taco lentils are next, so I'm rinsing the lentils. Normally, I like to use black and French lentils for this recipe, but Aldi only has the regular brown lentils, which is fine as well. So that's what I'm using today. That goes into my 6-quart Instant Pot. Then I have all of the spices measured out already. This is another huge time saver for a meal prep like this. And as I mentioned earlier, I will have all the measurements for these recipes linked below the video. Then I have a little bit of salsa, and today I'm adding a bag of frozen riced cauliflower. This was not part of my original taco lentil recipe, but sometimes I like to add it in. Then I add some water, stir it up, and set it to cook at high pressure for 7 or 8 minutes, depending on how well done you want the lentils. After that, I'll wash the fresh veggies that I bought. I got parsley, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers that could be used to go along with the hummus or taco lentils throughout the week. I'll also be using some of these veggies in the tofu scramble, including these mushrooms, which I just like to rinse under running water to get the dirt off. Some people say soaking or rinsing mushrooms will change the texture, but I've never had a problem washing my mushrooms this way. I'm also taking a moment here to drain the tofu for my tofu scramble. And once everything's cleaned, I'll put away the veggies I'm not using and chop up the veggies for my tofu scramble. By this point, the sweet potatoes have been cooking for 40 minutes, but they still need more time. So I flipped them around and I'm going to put them back in for about 20 more minutes. My Instant Pot also just beeped, so the taco lentils are done cooking now, but they need to depressurize, so I'll just let that sit while I move on to cooking the tofu scramble. First, I'll put the onions, mushroom, and garlic in a preheated skillet and cook for about 5 minutes. Then I add the peppers and cook a few more minutes. And next, I add in about half of one of those containers of spinach. I chopped it up just a little bit. These will wilt down really quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and start crumbling in the tofu. You can crumble this as much as you like depending on what kind of texture you want. And like with the taco lentils earlier, I also have the spices for my tofu scramble already measured out, and I'm adding those now. The turmeric in my spice blend will turn the tofu into a yellow color, making it resemble scrambled eggs. If you really wanted to get a scrambled egg flavor, you'd want to add a little bit of kala namak, or black salt. This has a sulfur flavor similar to eggs. I don't use it because I like my tofu scramble as is, but that's totally up to your preference if you want it to taste more like actual eggs. I'm about an hour and 20 minutes into my food prep, and most of the recipes have already been started. There's just a couple more quick recipes left to go. This tofu scramble is basically done, but I want to let it cook a little longer so all the flavors can come together. So I'll just keep that on low while I move on to my hummus. Usually, my secret ingredient for super creamy and delicious oil-free hummus is to add some of the aquafaba, which is the liquid in the can. Unfortunately, Aldi doesn't have low-sodium beans, and these have 300 milligrams per serving, which is quite a lot. So I'll be draining the aquafaba and rinsing these well to get off as much salt as I can. Instead of using the aquafaba, I'll just add a little bit of water to my hummus. But if you're able to get salt-free or low-sodium beans, the aquafaba will enhance the texture of your hummus. The chickpeas go into the food processor, then I have the garlic that I chopped up earlier, a little bit of cumin, a salt substitute, fresh squeezed lemon juice, and some tahini. Feel free to leave the tahini out for a lower fat hummus. Finally, I'm adding that little bit of water, or like I said, aquafaba would be better. I'll blend that until it's nice and smooth and then transfer it to a storage container. The sweet potatoes finished cooking a few minutes ago, so I took them out of the oven and they've been cooling. Once they were cool enough to handle, I transferred them to a glass storage container. It's best to store baked sweet potatoes uncovered in the refrigerator. And now all that's left is the quinoa flatbread and my cheesy sauce. So now that the quinoa has soaked, I'm draining it and adding it to my Vitamix along with some fresh water. I also seasoned it with a salt substitute spice mix, and I'll blend that all until the mixture is completely smooth. You could make these into round tortilla shapes by cooking in a non-stick skillet, but that's a bit more time-consuming since you can only make one at a time. So I prefer to pour it out onto parchment-lined baking sheets. Then, after it bakes, I'll cut it into squares. Depending on how thin you pour these out, you'll bake for about 20 to 30 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And then, last but not least, I'm mixing up my cheesy sauce, which I've made countless times on the channel before. I peeled one of those baked sweet potatoes, and I'm adding that to my Vitamix along with a can of Great Northern beans that I drained and rinsed. Then I have spices that I measured out earlier, a little bit of nutritional yeast, and I only add 1 or 2 tablespoons, but if you really like that flavor, you could add a 1/4 cup or more. Then I have some stone ground mustard, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and water. You'll get the smoothest result in a high-powered blender. And depending on your exact blender, the moisture in the sweet potato, and how thick or thin you want your cheesy sauce, you may need to add more or less water. If you don't have a high-powered blender, a food processor would be the second best option. It'll still taste delicious, it just won't be quite as velvety smooth. After that's all blended up, I'll transfer it to a storage container. And now I'm just waiting on the flatbread to finish baking. So I can take this time to transfer everything else to storage containers and finish washing dishes. I've been washing dishes all along during the food prep, and I highly recommend doing this so you don't have a mountain of dishes to do at the end. Once I got all the dishes done, the quinoa flatbread still just had a couple of minutes to go, and I finished the entire food prep in just over 2 hours. I could have easily shaved off at least a half hour or more if I wasn't stopping every 5 minutes to move the camera for filming. But 2 hours and 20 minutes is pretty good for an entire meal prep. I used to food prep like this every week because it worked really well for me to pick one afternoon and get everything done. But lately, my schedule has changed, so I rarely have a day where I have a block of 2 hours of time to do a big prep like this. So instead, I actually like to break it up throughout the week. So for example, one day I might make the sweet potatoes and flatbread, then another day I'll make the taco lentils and whip up a batch of cheesy sauce or hummus, and then another day to make tofu scramble or another recipe. When I do this regularly, I'm able to prep everything on a rolling basis. When one thing runs out, I simply make more of it rather than always making everything on one day. But the best way to stick with a healthy whole food plant-based diet is to have staples like this in your fridge ready at all times. So pick whichever method works best for you and get prepping. Let's recap everything I made today. I've got the taco lentils, tofu scramble, baked sweet potatoes, hummus, cheesy sauce, some fresh veggies, and the quinoa flatbreads. I've also still got another container and a half of spinach to use along with my meals, as well as the frozen broccoli and fruit for snacking. All of this can be mixed and matched to make many different meals throughout the week. Of course, you could eat the tofu scramble on its own along with a baked sweet potato, or you could wrap it up in a flatbread and top it with some of the cheesy sauce. You could do the same with the taco lentils, adding that to flatbread and topping it with cheesy sauce, salsa, and fresh veggies. I also love a simple meal of the taco lentils in a baked sweet potato along with some broccoli. Then you could make a sandwich with the flatbread and hummus, or of course there's all the fresh veggies to dip in the hummus, and you could make little crackers out of the flatbread to dip as well. Finally, another simple suggestion is to make a hummus stuffed sweet potato and top it with veggies. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I was able to do with a $50 Aldi grocery haul. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, and you can check out more grocery hauls and meal preps here. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.